Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me again. This is Courtney from Hartford Community Action Agency, and we are on week 2 of our food advocacy course that should go 6 weeks. And for week 2, we are going to talk about produce. So you may or may not know, but produce actually comes in 3 forms. So there's 3 ways that you can purchase produce, and that is fresh, frozen, and canned. And so in a nutshell, there is not necessarily a best form of produce, as each type of produce has pros and cons. And so the ways that you might choose what you're going to purchase or what form you're going to be purchased could be influenced by what you're going to make, what's in season, what's available, how much time do you have, what's the price. So what I always like to refer back to when thinking about what are the best choices for your family is kind of going by this, which is fresh first when in season. So when it's in season, try to choose fresh. Frozen next. That's because frozen has a wide variety of options, and there's also typically deals in the store on those. And finally, always keeping canned on hand, and we'll delve deeper into why. So let's start with fresh. As mentioned previously, each type does have pros and cons. So the pros of fresh produce when it's in season is that you have a great variety. Also think about this, when you go into a store to purchase fresh produce or you go to a market, you can pick it up, you can touch it, you can see it, you can smell it before buying it. And that's important because you can always put it back if you choose not to buy it. Also, fresh produce is obviously going to be in its most natural form. So this is the way that nature intended for it to be consumed. It's the way that it's grown. It doesn't have any sauces or extra additives. So that's definitely a pro. Now, finally, a pro to fresh is that it can cost less, but the main key to this is when you purchase it in season, and there's reasons for that. So if you think about this, when you purchase something in season, there's going to be an abundance of it available. So there's going to be more of it available, which makes it cheaper to purchase. Also, there's probably a high likelihood that you can buy it closer to home. So you're not going to pay for transportation costs. There are, however, some cons to fresh produce, and we need to think about these. So fresh produce is great when it's in season, but you must use it quickly before going bad. And that process starts immediately after the produce is picked. So you really need to have a plan for how you're going to use it. You need to learn how to store it and how to safely use it. So do you need to wash it? Most likely, yes, all produce. How long is it going to keep, and how can you store that? Can you store it in your pantry? Does it need to be refrigerated? So those are important things to keep us safe. And finally, again, if you're not purchasing it in season or you're not using it in a timely fashion, it's going to be expensive. So again, having a plan. So the great thing about produce, and especially this page right here, is this is directly for the state of Maryland, and it gives you an idea of what items of produce are available when they're in season. And as you can see, if you look through this chart, there is always going to be something in season. So I love this chart. You can take it to the store, you can take it to the markets, but to have an idea of what you can be using for any recipe at any one time of year. So let's talk about frozen. So as I said, there are definitely some pros with frozen produce. First of all, when they are frozen, they're frozen directly after being picked, so they're frozen at peak freshness. They also have a longer shelf life than fresh produce, so you can keep them in the freezer for about 6 months. That gives you some flexibility with use. Little preparation is required, so basically you can heat them up on a stovetop or in a microwave, so you don't need to do a whole lot to it. It's usually pre-cut. Next, available all year round. So since they've been picked at their peak of freshness, you might have an item that was available in the summertime. It's now wintertime. It's not available to you readily. So you can buy that item possibly frozen to use if you're craving it or you want to make a specific recipe. Next, there are always, so this kind of goes to the last two, so it can cost less to out of season produce, but also there's always going to be sales at the stores. So there's always deals on frozen produce, always. There are some cons, however. As we mentioned earlier with the fresh, you can touch it, you can smell it, you can see it before you buy it. However, with frozen, you can't do that. So you can't touch it or see it before buying it. And that can mean that the texture has changed. So maybe it looks different than you're accustomed to. Maybe to you, the texture of it when you taste it is not the same as when it's fresh. Maybe it's not as crunchy. Maybe it's too soft. So any number of things could change that texture, but it could just not be palatable to you or your family. And also, we need to be careful that when we purchase frozen produce, that we're buying it in its most basic form. So looking for that type of frozen produce that's not going to have extra sauces with that we're going to give you sodium and sugar and added fat. So trying to buy it in its most basic form. And some of those items can be hidden, so you want to be careful. All right, so moving on. So lastly, canned. Canned does have redeeming qualities. You know, it's gotten a bad rap over the years, and we certainly understand why, because we want to be mindful of the cons. But let's start with the pros. And first, actually, I'm going to talk about the situation we're in now with being in a pandemic with COVID-19. You know, early on, it was very difficult to get in and out of grocery stores. They were crowded. They were lacking products. And so this would be a great time to consider, you know, stocking up on canned fruits and vegetables so that any time in your life, no matter what happens, if it's a pandemic or a storm, some sort of emergency situation, your power goes out, that you have fruits and vegetables readily available to you. So going on that again, they are canned at peak freshness. So they're picked and they're canned. They have a very long shelf life, so 2 to 4 years. We want to be checking those dates, though. Little preparation required and available year-round. So those are great things as far as having those on your shelves in a pinch. If you're busy, if you just want to put something together, you don't have a whole lot of time to cut and prep, it's a great product to have. Also, again, to have it available in an emergency, very important to still try to eat as healthily as possible, even when times are tough. Also, of all the three forms, it's typically going to be your cheapest of the three forms, most likely. And again, always sales on canned items in the grocery store, so looking out. However, we do all know that there are cons, and the biggest ones would be that they typically have added sodium and sugar, and that's part of the canning process, part of keeping those items preserved. However, what you can do is actually drain them and rinse them. So that's a helpful tip. Also, I don't know about you, but there are some vegetables that I very much enjoy fresh. Then I have it canned, and it does not taste so good to me. So maybe it tastes softer than you're used to. So it definitely, the texture and taste can change. Some you may prefer more than the fresh item. So it just depends. And finally, again, you're not going to be able to touch or smell it or see it before buying. So as we're talking about produce today, we are going to talk about the vegetable group. And so what's in the vegetable group? So what can be considered a vegetable? As any vegetable or 100% vegetable juice. They can, again, be in any of the three forms, so fresh, frozen, canned, also whole, cut up, or mashed. And there's actually 5 subgroups of vegetables, so 5 groups that the vegetables are going to fall under, and you can see these here. So we have dark green, starchy, red, and orange, beans and peas, and then others. And so if you want to know what's specifically in each of those groups, you can look at this list to find out what it falls under. So this lists all the different types of vegetables that you can find. So next, when I think of vegetables and how we want to consume them or eat them, I like to think of a vegetable as a tree. So think of a tree. A tree has several parts. So it has the roots. It has leaves, it has flowers, it has stems. And the important thing about eating vegetables is that we want to eat all parts of this tree. So we want to consume root vegetables, which would be your carrots, perhaps. We want to eat the leaves, so thinking about our spinaches and our cabbage. We want to eat the flowers, so thinking about broccoli and cauliflower. And finally, the stems, so for example, eating asparagus. So thinking of a vegetable as a tree, I think will help us to think about eating different parts of that tree. And that's where we're going to get the most nutrients, by eating different types of vegetables. So here's a couple tips on how to add more vegetables to your day. I know it's especially difficult when we have picky eaters. You have children, grandchildren that you might be caring for. So what are some simple tips? So here's 10. Discover fast ways to cook food. So thinking about how can we quickly add fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables, to our diet. Think about this. If you have a microwave, that is a quick way. And also, number two, being ahead of the game. So cutting those items up ahead of time so you can have them ready to be cooked or steamed, or also you can take them with you on the go. So being ahead of the game. Choosing vegetables that are rich in colors, so the bright reds, the bright oranges, they're going to have great nutrients in them. Checking the freezer aisle, as we mentioned earlier, so looking for those deals on the frozen produce that we can keep on hand. And again, as I mentioned earlier, with emergency situations, number 5, make sure you're stocked up on your vegetables because you never know when an emergency could happen. Make your salad glow with color. So I feel like, at least for me and for my family, that the more appetizing a meal looks, the more likely they are to eat it. So making it colorful, having a wide variety of items if you're going to eat a salad. Trying a vegetable soup. So vegetables are a great way to get nutrients when you include them in a soup. So there's lots of recipes out there. I'll be sharing some as we go along. So consider soup as a source. Again, if you go out to eat, try to ask for an extra side of vegetables while you're out, a salad, rather than something else on the side. 9, again, savoring fresh vegetables, but trying to do it when they're in season. So you can refer back to the chart of what is in season. And again, number 10, varying your veggies, so eating different parts of that tree. So next, we're going to get ready to watch a demo, and this is going to be a recipe which is a corn and bean salad. It's a very versatile recipe because you can use a variety of types of produce, your fresh, frozen, canned. When things are in season, you can use them. This is really my go-to recipe and something that I've enjoyed throughout the years, and so have those who have participated in my class. So let's get ready to watch the making of our corn and bean salad.
Hi everyone, I'm Courtney from Hartford Community Action Agency, and today we're going to talk about the My Plate group of vegetables. And if you look at the My Plate diagram, you can see that My Plate tells us that it wants half of our plate to be fruits and vegetables. Half. If we think of how we want to eat our vegetables, think in terms of a tree. A tree essentially has 3 parts: the root, the leaves, and the stems. So in other words, when we speak about eating our vegetables, we want to eat root vegetables, vegetables that are leaves, and then also vegetables that are stems. So we're eating a wide variety of the parts of the plant. As we discussed with the fruit group, the idea of eating healthy is a great one, but we want to definitely be able to do it on a budget. And when it comes to our vegetables, again, thinking about buying fresh produce when it's in season, frozen next, and always having canned on hand, for example in emergencies like we're experiencing now. To help make the can slightly healthier, we can always drain and rinse it. Hi everyone, it's Courtney and I'm here with my daughter Cecilia. Cecilia, say hi.
Hi.
Cecilia is a freshman, she's 14 years old, and she's going to help me today. And we are going to make a popular recipe called Southwestern black-eyed pea and corn salad. The reason I really like this recipe is because it combines all 3 types of produce. So we're going to have a fresh pepper that's diced. We're going to use half of a red onion that will be diced. We are going to use frozen microwavable corn. We're going to use 2 types of beans, black-eyed peas, black beans, and then some seasoning. We're going to have apple cider vinegar, canola oil, cumin, and then instead of salt and pepper, I like to use Mrs. Dash.
Before you cook, always make sure to wash your hands with hot water and soap. Now mix all the ingredients together to make the salad.
Voila, our beautiful corn and bean salad. for joining me today with my daughter Cecilia to make this very versatile recipe. If you read the ingredients that are going to be posted on the website, you'll see that you can use a variety of beans, a variety of produce, whatever is in season. If you have corn on the cob, fresh tomatoes, use those. Also, one important point, whenever you're working with fresh produce, please make sure you wash it and scrub it properly before using. Thank you, and until next time, be well.
Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the making of our corn and bean salad and that you will make it with your family. So next, typically when I work with families, as I've mentioned before, I like to tie in a book that will highlight some of the lessons that we've learned in our class and our time together. And for this particular topic of vegetables, I like the book called Tops and Bottoms. So let's listen to a reading of the book Tops and Bottoms.
Tops and Bottoms by Janet Stevens. Once upon a time, there lived a very lazy bear who had lots of money and lots of land. His father had been a hard worker and a smart business bear, and he had given all of his wealth to his son. But all Bear wanted to do was sleep. Not far down the road lived a hare. Although Hare was clever, he sometimes got into trouble. He had once owned land too, but now he had nothing. He had lost a risky bet with a tortoise and had sold all of his land to Bear to pay off the debt. Hare and his family were in a very bad shape. "The children are so hungry, Father Hare. We must think of something," Mrs. Hare cried one day. So Hare and Mrs. Hare put their heads together and cooked up a plan. The next day, Hare hopped down the road to Bear's house. Bear, of course, was asleep. "Hello, Bear! Bear, wake up! It's your neighbor, Hare, and I have an idea." Bear opened one eye and grunted. "We can be partners," Hare said. "All we need is this field right here in front of your house. I'll do all the hard work of planting and harvesting, and we can split the profit right down the middle. Yes, sir, Bear. We're in this together. I'll work and you sleep." "Huh?" Bear said. "So what will it be, Bear?" asked Hare. "The top half or the bottom half? It's up to you. Tops or bottoms?" Let's see," Bear said with a yawn. "I'll take the top half, Hare. Right tops." Hare smiled. "It's a done deal, Bear." So Bear went back to sleep, and Hare and his family went to work. Hare planted, Mrs. Hare watered, and everyone weeded. Bear slept as the crops grew. When it was time for harvest, Hare called out, "Bear, wake up! You get the tops, and I get the bottoms." Hare and his family dug up the carrots, the radishes, and the beets. Hare plucked off all the tops, tossed them into a pile for Bear, and put the bottoms aside for himself. Bear stared at his pile. "But Hare, all the best parts are in your half." "You chose the tops, Bear," Hare said. "Now, Hare, you've tricked me. You plant this field again, and in this season, I want the bottoms." Hare agreed. "It's a done deal, Bear." So Bear went back to sleep, and Hare and his family went to work. They planted, watered, and weeded. Bear slept as the crops grew. When it was time for the harvest, Hare called out, "Wake up, Bear! You get the bottoms, and I get the tops." Hare and his family gathered up the lettuce, the broccoli, and the celery. Hare pulled off the bottoms for Bear and put the tops in his own pile. Bear looked at his pile and scowled. "Hare, you've cheated me again." But Bear," Hare said, "you wanted the bottoms this time." Bear growled, "You plant this field again, Hare. You tricked me twice, and you owe me one season of both tops and bottoms." You're right, poor old bear, sighed Hare. It's only fair that you get both tops and bottoms this time. It's a done deal, Bear. So Bear went back to sleep, and Hare and his family went to work. They planted and watered and weeded, and then watered and weeded some more. Bear slept as the crops grew. When it was time for the harvest, Hare called out, "Bear, wake up! This time you get the tops and the bottoms." There, in front of Bear's house, lay a high field of corn. Hare and his family yanked up every cornstalk. Hare tugged off the roots at the bottom and the tassel at the top and put them in a pile for Bear. Then he carefully collected the ears of corn in the middle and placed them in his own pile. Bear rubbed his eyes and watched. "See, Bear? You get the tops and the bottoms. I get the middles." "Yes, sir, Bear. It's a done deal." By now, Bear was wide awake. "That's it, Hare," he hollered. "From now on, I'll plant my own crops and take the tops, the bottoms, and the middle." Hare and his family scooped up the corn and hopped down the road toward home. Bear never again slept through a season of planting and harvesting. Hare bought his land back with the profit from the crops. He and Mrs. Hare opened a vegetable stand. And although Hare and Bear learned to live happily as neighbors, they never became business partners again.
Hi, welcome back. I hope everybody enjoyed the reading of Tops and Bottoms. I think it's a really good book. And anytime we can talk about lessons in a story that children will understand, it's always a good idea. Okay, so finally, we're going to end with our mission of the week. So for week 2, I'd like you to try to enjoy produce items from all 3 forms, so fresh, frozen, and canned. Again, I'd like you to think about the pros and cons of each type of produce as you purchase produce throughout this week and how this information can help you to save money and to still eat vegetables. Also, if you can name one item from the vegetable group that you enjoy eating, so think about what do you like about that item and how do you prepare it? Do you eat it raw? Do you cook it with something? So if you could share that information. And then finally, if you could try a new vegetable. So try something you've never tried before. Do some research. Try to buy something in season so you're saving money, and love to hear what that is. So hope everybody takes care, be well, and we will see you next week for week 3.